So now, you bring up a good conversation point about the relationship between death row and Interscope. I mean, you hear so many tangled stories about it. When what was the relationship between the two? I mean, from what you saw every day. I mean, obviously. It was strained, I guess, because what Interscope tried to tend to do was kind of push things off to death row, the untouchable kind of thing.
Well,
Is that not true?
I have my own interpretation, and I do have a good eye, and I kind of look sometimes between the lines. Let's put it this way. Marion Suge Knight and Andre Young, Dr. Dre, had something. I mean, it was divine. They had the Chronic #1, which was was produced, the artwork was done, it was shrink wrapped. All Ted Fields and Jimmy Iovine had to do at that time was to put it out. They were about to go out of business. They had Rico Suave, and I think they were talking to U2 at the time, and then they had another group, I forget the name of this group, but that's all they had, and they were about to go bankrupt and go out of business. I think really because Ted Field had the money, but he was sick of the music business. All Ted really wanted to do was film. So I think really Suge Knight and Dre, they were a savior for them. As a matter of fact, Jimmy Iovine to this day is not in love with me because when I went the first time to Malibu to his estate to a meeting, and his wife at the time, Vicky, I don't believe he's with her anymore, said to me, she was showing me through the house, and I just said, because I say whatever I feel like, I said, oh, so this is the house that Death Row built. And I think he never liked me from that day forward, because when I was getting back at him actually, and that story is that my first assignment at Death Row was, my first big assignment was Murder Was the Case, which was he was Snoop Doggy Dogg at the time. So I did the publicity for that, plus I handled the 2 premieres, one here and one in New York, arranged for the premieres and parties afterwards. So Suge went on vacation, a brief vacation, I don't know, to one of the islands or somewhere, and he said to me, Papa Hollywood, one thing I don't want you to do, don't put any publicity out on Murder Was the Case until I get back. I said, you got my word. I'm at home watching a show called Hard Copy, which is no longer on television, and here they came on with a big hunk of the movie and the whole business. So the next morning I go across the hall from where we were in Westwood to the Interscope, and I just go in, and I go and knock on Jimmy Iovine's door, and the door opens, and there sat Jimmy Iovine and, the lawyer, Cohen.
Kenner?
No, not Kenner. Kenner was not Jimmy Iovine's on-staff lawyer. His name was Cohen. And a third party, the one that we called the Doughboy, and I liked him very much, but I forget his name right now. Anyway, I go in and say, Jimmy, Mr. Iovine, I'd like to speak to you for a moment. There was not supposed to be any publicity out on Murder Was the Case, and I saw half the movie on Hard Copy last night. And he said, well, number one, who are you? And I said, well, I'm the new director of what was my title? It was a long title Suge gave me. Director of Media Relations and Communication for Death Row Records. He said, oh, really? I thought you were Suge's chauffeur. Jeez. So I went back to Suge and told him, of course, Suge fell out laughing about the whole story. So that's why, in retort, I waited that long to say, oh, so this is the house that Death Row built. Unfortunately, when I walked away from Death Row, because I did quit, I didn't like how things were being run when Suge went away, and so I just quit one day.
We'll talk about that.
Smoke. Yeah. Anyway, because I did walk away after that, I did apply for a job at Interscope, and I never did get it. I wanted to work with Lori Earl because we had become very close friends. Dennis Dunahee now has taken her job. She's retired. Dennis handles Eminem and all of the major people, U2, people like that.
Well, since we're talking about this, I just kind of follow things as they go their natural course. Now, you know, when Suge went. Well, first off, let's talk about the hardest thing you probably had to deal with. These cats are going in and out of jail. Snoop's getting murder charges thrown at him. Pac's catching cases. All of it. This is not day in a life PR stuff. Normally, that's a public relation person's nightmare when that kind of thing happens. It sure keeps you gainfully employed.
Well, damage control
yeah.
process, yeah, I also do.
Yeah.
So that was a major part. I did as much damage control as I did anything else. All of the murder trials that you mentioned, all the robberies that you mentioned, if you see any of the footage, you'll see me sitting there. I'm normally with the press because I had to monitor what they were doing, what they were writing, what they were saying among themselves. At breaks, I tried to have lunch and be around the press, not anyone else, because I wanted to see, you know, how I wanted to make sure, number one, that they weren't slanting anything, which was very important.
Oh yeah.
To this day, I have a couple of very close friends who are journalists. As a matter of fact, I helped Chuck Phillips get the Pulitzer Prize. A lot of people just like him. Chuck Phillips was always honorable as far as I'm concerned, shared everything with me, and anything that came out with Chuck Phillips, and I'd like to say this, I'm saying this on camera, that may have people think that he was mixed up. He got this from what we both thought were reliable sources at that time, because I've seen other footage and even members of Tupac's family who blame Chuck Phillips, and I just want to say that